Bum, bum, bum. It's the Security Weekly News, episode 339. I'm Doug White, and it is Friday, the 3rd of November, 2023. We're in November now. We got bots, Citrix, Mitre, Solarwinds, naked nudes, Scarlett Johansson, Aaran Leyland, and more news on the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News. AI, accelerated cloud adoption, and hybrid work are fundamentally shifting how business gets done. The old way of securing your people, apps, and data doesn't work and scale anymore. To stay ahead, today's organizations need to reimagine their security and networking infrastructure with a cloud-first, unified SASE architecture. Join Palo Alto Networks and leading technologists from across the globe for SASE Converge 2023, a two-day virtual experience, November 15th and 16th. Revealing how SASE powered by advanced AI can drive better security and networking outcomes. Register today at securityweekly.com/Palo Alto.
Make sure you subscribe to the Below the Surface podcast by Eclipsium in partnership with CRA. Myself and Scott Shefferman host this show. We've had the pleasure of speaking with some amazing guests, including Zeno Kova, Richard Hughes, Vincent Zimmer, and more. We discuss topics related to firmware and supply chain security, uncovering those pesky vulnerabilities that lie, well, below the surface in your environments. You can find all the episodes and subscribe by visiting eclipsium.com/podcast or searching for Below the Surface in your favorite podcast catcher.
All right, I'm Doug White. Welcome to the Security Weekly News this Friday. It got nice and cold in New England, so it feels like autumn now. Well, there were thousands of Citrix Netscaler ADC gateway instances that remain unpatched and exposed against a vulnerability that's being widely exploited. I think unpatched and exposed could be a show. Like maybe they shave your head and drop you naked into the middle of the Bronx and you have to make your way back to Coney Island. I think that was the plot of The Warriors. I'm not sure. Well, anyway, Citrix did release patches for this back on the 10th of October, and we talked about it. And they issued another warning last week that the vulnerability is being actively exploited. Now, this attack allows, using this exploit, they can essentially session hijack, and which, if you can do this and you've got all these tokens, you can bypass authentication, including multi-factor, because they have the session cookies out of the initial vulnerability. So what that does is it grants memory access to Netscaler. Yow. So Mandiant said that the attackers have stolen session cookies from over 20,000 servers so far. And I mean, Citrix basically said if you have sessions, you need to close them. Gray Noise said that on the 1st of November, 158 unique IP addresses were being used to target vulnerable servers over the past 10 days. And I think they have a list of those in the article, so if you're wanting to put those on your block list, you can. Mandiant published a scanner last week to help identify vulnerable servers on your network. So if you have Citrix servers, you may want to be running these, even if they're not exposed, because there's two pieces to this, right? There's the exposure piece where you're actually putting management interfaces up on the public internet. I mean, not that the internal is not a risk too, but then there's also the vulnerability itself. So you should have patched and you should have stopped exposing. But Mandiant is also advising, I said Citrix, but Mandiant advised to close all the active sessions since they could already be compromised or compromisable. So if you got stuff that's just continuous, like I have servers I stay connected to all the time. So you may want to shut those down and make people relog in because their cookies could have been. So patch it and remove that internet access to those management components like today, please. Or they're going to come get you and then you'll be sorry. Mitre released version 14 of Mitre attack. I've never known how to say it. And an attack with the ampersand in the middle is a widely used grid, which most of us are familiar with, and it's really nice. I mean, I do like it, and it's got this an unpleasant name. I don't like these things because I don't know how to say them. I mean, like, Kesha finally just changed her name back and took the $sign out because nobody knew how to say it. But attack, you can't say it, you can't type it. That ampersand just barbecues everybody on the typewriter, at least for me. But anyway, we can't say it, we can't type it. Let's put some more ampersands in the middle of it or whatever. But anyway, it is a really nice tool, and I like it, despite having to just call it attack and go, yeah, but it's misspelled. But this new version covers an additional 760 pieces of software, 143 activity clusters, and 24 campaigns across enterprise, mobile, and ICS. So they've added all those grids over the last few years so that they're now incorporating all that together. They have an expansion in the detection notes and all the analytics notes and everything else. It's just a great way to drill down an attack. I mean, I really do like it. I used it a lot at a lab I worked at. And, we would go in and punch through these kind of things. They did add a lot of stuff for ICS. They added a lot of stuff for mobile. So if you're working in those areas, it's also good. And it's a great way to actually, and they're not paying me to say this, although they should, but it's a great way to talk to management or to demonstrate these things to your team. I mean, and if you really want to understand that attack from the start to the finish, they have a lot of notes, you can drill down into. So, I really like using it for analysis. I used it in presentations, and it's pretty much free. So, there's some rules you're supposed to follow, but, like you're supposed to say Mitre attack first, and then you can always say attack after that or whatever. But the new version has expanded features, and it's very feature-rich, so check it out. A scary, spooky study that was released on the 31st of October, I guess that's why they released it today, which is Halloween in the United States. It's SWN, other places, and other places it's the 31st of October, but whatever. Researchers found that 92% of cybersecurity professionals that they hit up in this survey responded that staff reductions created gaps in their cyber defenses. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not giving the study a hard time. I'm like, it's obvious that if you cut the staff, you're probably going to get problems. This study was conducted between April and May of 2023 by the International Information Systems Security Certification Consortium. Whew, that's another mouthful. It was fun to type too. But that, if you don't know, that's ISC squared, as all of us simple types call it. They do CISSP and any number of other certifications. I mean, none of that surprises me because we don't usually have, that many positions that are deep. So we end up with one person who's responsible for this. I mean, sometimes you have 4 analysts or something if you're a big enough organization, or 16 analysts or whatever, but we often don't have a very deep bench when it comes down to that. So, when your ADA programmer decides to retire and you don't have another ADA programmer, you're going to have exposure. So cutting staff and saying, we've got to all tighten our belts because I need a new yacht next year in my bonus structure. But whatever, I'm sorry, I shouldn't start bashing CEOs. I'll never get hired again. But 35% of the respondents listed on this survey said security tied to cloud computing was the top skills gap, which was followed by AI machine learning at 32% and zero trust at 29%. And I mean, to be honest, a lot of places are just starting to ramp up teaching people these things. I mean, you're starting to see schools have cloud security programs. You're starting to see AI being pushed back into the curriculum. This was something back in the 80s that they had AI and a lot of computer science programs, and it kind of went away. And, so until you have all those people, it's hard to find people that have experience in this. I mean, and I know companies that can't even manage to hire an entry-level analyst because they call me and go, what do you think about $17 an hour? I'm like, is the job at, like a fast food restaurant? Saying, would you like fries with that? I mean, because, minimum wage is like $15 an hour. And they're like, we can't seem to get anybody to take our job. And they're like, yeah, you got to wear a coat and tie every day, come to the office from 8 to 5 every day, fight the traffic and all this kind of stuff. And, oh, yeah, we're going to pay you a whopping $17 an hour. Yeah, sign me up. 45% in the survey said that AI will be a top challenge over the next 2 years. I'm surprised that wasn't higher. And 47% said they have no or minimal technical knowledge of AI. Again, not a shock. 75% of the respondents said that the current threat landscape is the most challenging it has been in the last 5 years, and only 52% said their organization has adequate tools and people to respond to cyber incidents over the next 2 to 3 years. The current estimate is that despite an 8.7 increase over 2022 in the total jobs in cyber. That's like 440,000. There is still a record high gap in cyber needs of about 4 million jobs. Yeah. Okay, I mean, I think I should get a raise, right? I mean, I'm willing to work, but not for minimum wage. So call me. Yeah, was that a clue? That was a clue in the New York Times crossword, I think, today, was a pinky and thumb. And I was like, what the hell does that mean? And then I thought, oh, call me. Yeah. All right. Remember Solarwinds? Yeah. Well, now, this was several years ago. The company and their CISO, Tim Brown, were charged with fraud following an SEC, and if you don't know what that stands for, it's not the, I don't know, what that's some kind of sports thing, but it's also the Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States. They supervise publicly traded companies, and so they conducted an investigation into the 2020 Orion Sunburst supply chain attacks, and we covered that for weeks. So the fraud in this case, well, and it's most interesting because the charges are that they allegedly defrauded investors by talking up SolarWinds cybersecurity practices and downplaying or failing to disclose known risks. I think every CISO should read this story like today. And I mean, because that's a very scary thing to me. I mean, I read some of those investor reports, and they don't usually play up a lot of. They always talk about weaknesses, but they really downplay. I mean, everybody does it. They never come out there and go, "Oh yeah, we're probably going to be sued into the Stone Age over the next 10 years because of those toxic chemicals we put in the ice cream." But profits, right? Profits. But anyway, I mean, that means you, as a cybersecurity professional, could be on the hook for those statements you get asked to write for the 10Ks and the 7Ks and all the annual reports and all that kind of stuff. So if you're not entirely honest, you could be on the hook for fraud. I mean, it's good that you're on the hook for it if you did it, but it's also scary because, you write something, send it in, it gets edited 15 times, and you probably don't even see it again. It just goes out to shareholders. Now, the company and the CISO for SolarWinds have vowed they're going to fight these charges. And the CEO said, quote, "The truth of the matter is that SolarWinds maintained appropriate cybersecurity controls prior to Sunburst and has led the way ever since in continuously improving enterprise software security based on evolving industry standards and increasingly advanced cybersecurity threats." Now, leading the way after you committed a crime doesn't count. So put that off the table. I know he said it, but put that off the table. That's like saying I robbed a bank, but afterwards I didn't rob any more banks. In fact, I reduced my bank robbing later. So you can't say that. If you did something wrong, you can't come back and say, I know a speeding officer, but I'll never speed again, even though I probably will. But they said, I see both sides of it, because they said there's a control that says the front door shall be locked, and we have that control in place. The door was locked. But somebody went out and invented a ladder, and they climbed up to the second floor window. So, how forward thinking do we have to be to it not to be defrauding investors? Because, you didn't tell us that there was a control for second floor windows. We did the first floor one. So the SEC, I think, needs to be a little more clear about what controls they want in place. If they want you to have these controls, they should put them there. And you can't read the future. You can't tell me you got to have every possible control in place forever and ever and ever, even though that was what I used to get hired to do, was to come in and tell people, have you thought about the second floor? And they were like, yeah, but that's not required. And you're like, well, okay, do you want to just do what's required, or do you want to do what's right? And they say, what's required? We can't afford to do what's right. And it's like, okay, but how can you charge them with fraud if they follow the controls? I don't know. So we'll keep an eye on that one. It's pretty interesting. Revealing photos of young women as lures to trick victims into downloading Nodestealer. Say it isn't so. I mean, like, really? If it works, it works. I mean, and thirst traps work on everyone if you get the right thirst trap. I mean, even that gravel-throated guy with the unfiltered cigarette hanging out of his mouth on 8th Avenue, slowly going, naked, naked, naked. I always wonder what happened to that guy. He used to always be out there. But, I mean, that must have worked on someone. I mean, did anyone ever walk up 8th Avenue and see that guy and go, yeah, I'm going to go in there? Because I always thought, whatever is naked in there that this guy is yelling about, I don't want to see it. Like, really. But obviously somebody did. But this one, if you click it, and it's been mostly on Facebook, And before you sneer at people clicking on she left her underwear where? People click on that stuff. But there's probably a thirst trap for you as well, right? I mean, like freak wolf boy hybrid found living in an abandoned city hall station. I'm going, oh, that could be interesting. That's a cool station. And they do have a tour of those abandoned stations now, too, you can go on, which is kind of cool. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to. But, how about desperate mom found this would stop baby crying? Yeah? So if you click the ad on Facebook, it immediately downloads an archive which contains an executable named Photo Album, which then drops another executable which is written in .NET. That one steals your browser cookies and your passwords, according to a report by Bitdefender. Now, this is being used in Facebook, and they primarily are targeting male users from Europe, Africa, and the Caribbean, and the most impacted demographic is 45-plus-year-old males. Come on, folks. But the links are hosted on legit domains. The attack leaves you essentially locked out of your Facebook account, and then they can use your Facebook account for various different purposes, including scamming your friends, running malicious ads, and so forth. So keep diligent and watch out for thirst traps. They may, even if you just think they're fun, like a wolf boy in City Hall Station. That sounds fun to me. I don't believe there's a wolf boy in City Hall Station, but it's like reading the old New York Post headlines. But you're going to have to be diligent, and it might be a good time to have a talk with your people about thirst traps, especially if you have 45-year-old male employees. But, everybody's vulnerable to this, I'm telling you. Scarred Manticore is a group associated with Iran, and they have been considered a state-sponsored spying group which focus on high-value organizations across the Middle East, and they've been operating for at least a year. They use stealthy, customizable malware frameworks. Checkpoint Insignia issued a report on the 31st of October, Halloween again, which said that their latest campaign was notably more sophisticated compared to previous activities that had been tied to Iran, which tells me that they're probably pumping more money into this, or maybe they're paying more so they get better hires. Targets span government, in these new targets, government, military, financial, IT, and telco sectors in Israel, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Oman, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. But all that tells me coming soon to a theater near you. But what was stolen in these attacks is not actually known at this time to the public. That doesn't mean that somebody doesn't know, but it's not been revealed. Checkpoint called them Scarred Manticore, and Cisco Talos called them Shrouded Snooper. What? We need to get on the same page with all this, folks. Make me the czar of naming stuff. If I call the Mets the Psychos and you call them the Prestidigitators, it gets really confusing when we get in an argument in a bar. Or maybe we wouldn't get in an argument then, since we think we're talking about different stuff. Maybe I'll be the king of this. Everybody will bow down before me as I dub them, "You are called Muddy Wombat," or whatever. Wait, where was I? Oh, anyway. The latest tools these guys are using are called the Liontail Framework, and it exploits undocumented functionalities of the HTTP.sys driver, which is on just about every machine everywhere. And it basically allows them to extract HTTP payloads from incoming traffic. So they're able to grab, of course, session tokens and all that good stuff. They've used a lot of other tools in the past, but they have a pretty, elaborate history. The article is really interesting, and they do have links to a lot of the deeper detail about how these tools work, how they worked in the past, and how these attacks are conducted. So if you're interested in that kind of detail, it's a great article to check out. They have a really cool kind of medieval-looking drawing on there, too, of, I guess that's supposed to be a manticore, which is a mythical beast, of course. Will you try to raise your chatbots upright and teach them the skills they need to survive? But, well, they aren't always very smart. Yeah, kind of like humans. Chatbots may be helping your org with all kinds of things, or helping you with all kinds of things. And modern ones, of course, you can use to write emails for you. Dash off a letter to the president, Midge. Search your files, be your best friend, maybe even, a partner and so forth. But I hate to tell you this. They're like cats. They're not very loyal. They'll listen to anyone who talks. And, cats will listen to anybody who's got, say, a treat for them. They really don't know who you are, and they can't tell the difference in their commander, or whatever you have them call you, and somebody who just pops in your office at 3 a.m. Or worse, is accessing a server that this thing is running on, which means that large language models, who are called LLMs, which are these things, are vulnerable to what is called prompt injection. And the way this works is the attackers can hide commands in web pages that the chatbot is reading to gather information. So now that they've turned them loose on the internet, guess what? People are building poisonous sites, and this stuff's not obvious. They can hide all this in the code, but the chatbot reads the code, and that can trick the chatbot into downloading, say, a sweet piece of malware onto your machine that the next time you activate it, it goes, oh, I have something for you today, dear, and it pops you with, a nasty worm or something. Or maybe they get the chatbot to give up some financial information that it got from you, where you were saying, could you fill out the TPS report for me, Mildred? Or even it primes it to tell you some juicy misinformation. Yeah, like bet it all on orange juice futures. Come on. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Well, the Federal Trade Commission in the United States opened an investigation into ChatGPT in July, and Britain's National Cybersecurity Center published a warning in August naming prompt injection as a major risk to large language models. I could really see this happening, because if you ask ChatGPT to write something for you, it goes out and looks at a bunch of websites and pulls all that data together very quickly, and or looks at its training model that's already there. If that thing's got bad stuff in it, problems could ensue. I mean, did no one read iRobot? Really? Asimov wrote all those iRobot stories in the 40s and the 50s, and they are spot on about all this stuff. So you should read them if you haven't. It does make you wonder if you should be using these things at all. Like, I'm thinking I'm pretty seriously going to move mine into a sandbox window so I can still talk to ChatGPT, but I don't really want ChatGPT going, I downloaded something for you, Doug. You're going to love it. Pop. Oh, did you just take over my whole network? Wait, ChatGPT. Don't call me ChatGPT anymore. Call me, I don't know, the Maestro. I'm coming for you. Anyway, yeah. I slay myself. Anyway, how many roads must a man walk down before you can call him Aaran Leyland? The answer, of course, is 42 roads. Please welcome Mr. Aaran Leyland. Hello, Aaran.
Hi, Dr. Doug. Literally, being a 45-year-old male, all I got out of that today was naked and thirst trap. Tell me more.
I'll send you a bunch of links. You'll be all set.
Oh, don't. Paul was sending me links recently. No, totally safe for work.
I send you like 15 phishing attacks a day. Come on.
I think my WhatsApp's been hacked today, Like, I'm not even joking. We should probably talk about it offline. But that's a different story. Okay, lots of information today, so pin your ears back. The article for an inspiration for today's professional commentary, new CVSS 4.0 vulnerability severity rating standard released. So big release day with Mitre attack framework, which I didn't know that happened. So I need to go and look at that straight after the show. Okay, you can find the links in the show notes as ever. And what I'll do quickly is go through a reminder of what CVSS 3.0 was. Obviously a reminder for most of us and not new knowledge. So CVSS stands for Common Vulnerability Scoring System, and it's a standardized framework used to assess the severity of software security vulnerabilities. CVSS provides a way to measure and score these vulnerabilities, helping organizations and cybersecurity professionals to understand the potential risks and impacts associated with them. It's commonly used to prioritize responses to security threats, good or bad, and you decide and allocate resources effectively in cybersecurity management. Okay, here's how CVSS is used. Scoring vulnerabilities. The primary purpose of CVSS is to assign a numerical score to the vulnerability. This score represents the severity of the vulnerability. It can also be translated into a qualitative representations as low, medium, high, and critical. Don't get your qualitative and quantitative mixed up like my head just did. Components. CVSS considers various components, calculate the score. These components include exploitability, obviously how easy it is to exploit the vulnerability, impact on confidentiality, the potential for data exposure, impact on integrity. All politicians didn't say that. Potential for data manipulation, impact on availability, potential for service disruption, and required privileges level of access required to exploit the vulnerability when it's remote code. It's bad. Okay, base score. The base score focuses on the intrinsic characteristics of the vulnerability. It does not consider environmental factors such as presence of security controls. Environmental score. The environmental score factors in specific context in which the vulnerability is being evaluated. It considers elements like the organization's security measures, which modify the base score. Prioritization. CVSS enables organizations to prioritize their responses to vulnerabilities. For example, vulnerabilities with higher scores represent more severe threats and should be addressed promptly. Don't forget the ones below it, and don't forget that a couple of mediums can make a higher severe, as anybody will know if they have done any rudimentary hacking courses. Okay, comparing vulnerabilities. CVSS provides a consistent and standardized way to compare vulnerabilities across different systems and software. This helps organizations evaluate the relative risk of various vulnerabilities and allocate resources accordingly. Security risk management. Organizations use CVSS to make informed decisions about mitigating vulnerabilities. How many times am I going to say vulnerabilities? By understanding the severity of each vulnerability, they can prioritize their efforts and allocate resources effectively. This approach enhances security risk management. Really good in tandem with Mitre attack and stuff like that. Vulnerability assessment. CVS is used in the vulnerability assessment process to determine which vulnerabilities are most critical. This guides organizations in patch management, remediation, and other security measures, just as a catch-all statement. Cybersecurity reporting. CVSS scores are often included in cybersecurity reports and advisories. They provide a concise and standardized way, we love standardization, to communicate the severity of vulnerabilities to different stakeholders. Security product development. Developers of security products and tools may use CVSS to describe the vulnerabilities they can detect or protect against. This allows users to understand the capabilities of product better, although probably all caught up in sales speak and none of it that we'll ever understand. Anyway, so now today's story. The release of CVSS 4.0 by the Forum of Incident Response and Security Teams, FIRST, is a significant milestone in the realm of cybersecurity. This new version, after 8 long years since CVSS 3.0, aims to provide a more comprehensive and fine-grained approach to assessing the severity of security vulnerabilities. So in this commentary today, we will explore the key features and implications of CVSS 4.0 for us, the cybersecurity professional audience. Okay. The release of CVSS 4.0 is particularly noteworthy due to the significant time gap, and it is quite significant, since the previous major version. It reflects the evolution of cybersecurity landscape and the pressing need for a more refined vulnerability assessment framework. Well, only if used properly. The predecessor, CVSS 3.0, had served its purpose, but it does exhibit certain limitations, which this one hopes to address. Okay, one of the most prominent features of 4.0 is the finer granularity in the base metrics and values. This granularity offers a more detailed view of security vulnerabilities, allowing professionals to assess not only the technical aspects, but also the potential impact on business operations. All good. We're always talking about being business enablers, right? The new version provides an extensive range of possible scores, enabling organizations to prioritize their security efforts more effectively, although it is more complicated. Is simplicity better? I don't know. Everything gets more complicated. CVSS 4.0 introduces the integration of environmental metrics and threat intelligence into the scoring system. This addition is a significant step forward because it recognizes that vulnerabilities are not static. Threat landscapes evolve, and the impact of vulnerabilities can change over time and across different environments, as we know. The tool now enables organizations to assess the current threat level of a security problem, providing them with real-time insights into potential risks. Pretty exciting. So the expansion of 4.0's applicability to operational technology, OT, industrial control systems, ICS, and Internet of Things, IoT, is a notable advancement and well needed, I should ask or say. With these domains playing increasingly critical roles in modern infrastructure, addressing vulnerabilities within them is imperative. 4.0 offers a foundation to build upon for organizations concerned about their IoT, OT, or ICS attack surface. And as we know, this attack surface is getting bigger and getting smashed all the time. So 4.0 introduces, and this word's amazing, nomenclature, anyway, derived from the Latin nomen, name, and clara, to call, or let's just call the word terminology. So terminology is what I'm going to go with, and Doug will tell me how to say that name in American when he comes back, maybe. Okay. 4.0 introduces new terminology which distinguishes different scores. So including base, and it's just known as CVSSB, base and threat, CVSSBT, base and environmental, CVSSBE, base plus threat plus environmental, CVSSBTE. As you can see, this is getting complicated, so you're really going to have to dive into this and understand it to grasp it and sort of make best use of it. This new terminology underscores the idea that CVSS is not solely about the base score. It should be supplemented by an analysis of the environment and attributes that may change over time. This change in terminology encourages a more holistic approach. We're always hearing about holistic to the vulnerability assessment. However, these enhancements come with challenges. Well, mostly understanding it, really. To fully utilize 4.0, organizations need to maintain an asset management database and threat intelligence data. So a bit of work there, but you should have that anyway. Like asset management database, we're talking about the very first one of the syscontrols 1 and 2 as well. These are used in environmental metric values and threat metric values, respectively. Without access to this data, organizations may not accurately gauge the impact of vulnerabilities in their environment. Additionally, some of the new metrics, it's like buzzword bingo now, it gets mental, but it should be good. I actually think this should be good if you get involved in it properly. Environmental, modified base metrics, environmental security requirements, also threat metrics rely on end user input. This means organizations must allocate resources to provide where the resource is going to come from. Resources to provide this data for vulnerability management process, which may pose a challenge for those with limited resources, always an issue. So in conclusion, 4.0 is a significant leap forward in the world of vulnerability assessment. It's fine-grained approach, integration of environmental metrics once you understand them, and focus on threat intelligence reflect the evolving nature of cybersecurity, just getting more difficult really. This new version provides a powerful tool for organizations, get using it, to gauge the technical and operational impact of security vulnerabilities, enabling them to make more informed decisions and prioritize their security efforts effectively. And prioritization is pretty key when it comes to cybersecurity. So as we evolve, having a robust and flexible framework like this is, they tell me, essential for staying ahead of emerging threats and vulnerabilities. It is a markable milestone. It does reinforce the importance of standardized approaches to vulnerability assessments for professionals across the industry. So standardization, brilliant. Okay, I hope you got all that, because it currently feels complicated, although I think it'll all shake out to good things when we fully understand it. Now, talking about good things, back to Dr. Doug in G-Unit Studios, Rhode Island. Hey, Dr. Doug.
Thank you, Aaron. I'm back. Sorry, I was muted for a second. I turned my mute on so I could swear and cough and all those fun things that I do while Aaron's speaking. Also yelling out things like, no, that's not right. Yes. But anyway. All right. And finally, speaking of AI, Scarlett Johansson is pressuring the developers of an AI avatar generating app into taking down an ad that used her face and voice without permission. The ad features a fake Scarlett Johansson and says that the Lisa AI is not limited to avatars only. The 22-second ad was posted on Twitter and other platforms, and a message with the ad stated, "Images produced by Lisa AI." I've seen that. And then it went on and it said, it has nothing to do with this person. Wow, if I knew you could get around like trademark copyright stuff by just saying it has nothing to do with this, my company would be called IBM.com. It has nothing to do with IBM.com. I mean, that's not going to work, folks. But anyway, Johansson's attorneys felt that they were wrong. And since, your image and voice kind of do have to do with your person, regardless of statements like this. On the good side of this, the remaining Beatles released a track sung by John Lennon based on a track recorded in the Dakota back in New York City back in 1978. McCartney said that the AI was able to clean up the track. You can imagine what recording, in an apartment in New York City in 1978 was probably like, with reel to reel at best, kind of stuff. So I don't know what's next. A Bob Dylan bot dropping by for dinner, or the Sex Pistols bots play your birthday party. Scarlett Johansson bots drop by, and well, I'm not going to go there. That's the news. But thanks, Aaron, and we'll see you next week on the Security Weekly News.